Welcome to a special edition of the Briefing Room. I'm Devin Dwyer, coming to you from Macomb County, Michigan. This is the swing district that delivered the state to Donald Trump in 2016. How are the fiercely independent voters here feeling 2.5 years later? Do you think the country's on the right track right now?
I think we need some work.
And are they sizing up any of the Democrats?
It's really stressful. Yeah. Waiting for them to narrow down.
Plus, night 2 of the Detroit debate, Joe Biden center stage. How will he fare tonight alongside Cory Booker, Kamala Harris? Will health care dominate for a second night in the row?
Bad policies like Medicare for all, free everything, and impossible promises that'll turn off independent voters and get Trump reelected.
You're wrong.
And how are Detroiters using tiny homes to fight homelessness? Right now on the Briefing Room.
Hey everybody, great to have you with us. Coming to you live from Detroit, Michigan. I'm Devin Dwyer with our Deputy Political Director, Mary Alice Parks. Mike Muse of the Mike Muse Show, an ABC News contributor.
What's up, Devin?
Here again, night 2, guys.
Night
8
2.
million people watched last night. Actually beat out the Bachelorette finale on ABC by just a sliver. So
that's amazing.
A significant drop from the first debates, but a lot of people still really interested in this, Mary Alice.
Absolutely, because it's make or break time for so many of these candidates. As we talked about last night, over half of this Democratic field has struggled to make it past 1 or 2% in the polls, and we know the threshold doubles for our debate in September. So if these candidates who are struggling in that lower tier don't get some real boost, they're going to have to bow out.
And Mike, tonight, arguably even more interest than last night because the frontrunner Joe Biden will be center stage, flanked by Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, the 2 African-American senators in this race, and they've been attacking him more than anybody else.
They have. We're going to see Kamala Harris at her best. She is a prosecutor like no other, and she's going to make her case to American public today like we've never seen before. We've seen her go after Joe Biden in a spectacular way in the first debate, and as Joe Biden said, he's ready for her. He said he won't be polite this time, and so I can't wait to see what's in store.
And the Democrats' identity crisis, which spilled out into public view yesterday, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, unflinching in their defense of their progressive values as they were attacked by the moderates. They were cheered on today by progressive firebrand Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who had this to say.
I believe that a progressive vision is what will win because it's not just about winning over Republican votes, but it's about actually inspiring and expanding turnout amongst the electorate. Inspiring turnout and having an inspiring candidate with a concrete vision that fights for working people, that fights for health care, that fights to lower the cost of housing, that makes sure that that the rich are paying their taxes, that our public schools are high quality. That is what's going to win us an election, not someone that doesn't have an easily defined policy that seems to be trying to be all things to all people.
So what did we learn last night about this epic debate within the Democratic Party?
She's making an interesting point there that it's not just about policy, which she agrees with Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren about policy, but it's also about politics and strategy. Those progressives believe that their sweeping ideas are good politics because they rev up the base. So those are 3 things we learned. Democrats have a lot to say about health care. They really got super wonky into the ins and outs of Medicare for all versus a public option. At one point, Beto used a line like Medicare for America because they were trying to piece apart really complicated ideas, doctor reimbursements, hospital closures. But we also learned that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren want to stay friends at this moment. On those big policy issues like healthcare, they went back to defend each other. There you see, they were not going to tangle yet. They don't have interest in doing that. They are in for the long haul, and there's just a lot more game left. They can do it a little bit later. And then the last point we were still sort of making with that conversation with AOC, that Democrats are still litigating why they lost in 2016. There are some that are very worried that they lost those working class voters. We've talked about this a lot the last 2 years. And there are others that say, no, we lost because people weren't excited to vote for Hillary Clinton, and we need to make sure we're putting out a candidate that excites our base. that is still a political argument they're having and they had last night.
And that argument largely will not be resolved until at least the first ballots are cast in Iowa several months from now. Mike, what are your 3 things you learned last night? You took a lot of interest in Elizabeth Warren.
I did. I think AOC got my email this morning where I said the 3 things are policy versus passion. I think sometimes the Democratic Party, something they're going to learn from is that Democrats enjoy being the smartest people in the room, and sometimes that doesn't translate to the American public. They like to show how much they know about policies, but at the end of the day, a lot of Americans don't understand the complexities and the nuance of policies at hand. They want to know, are you going to fight for them? They want to know, are you going to give them affordable health care? They want to know, are you going to bring them their jobs back in a very authentic way? They may not know how to get there, but they understand your passion points for it, and will you fight for them? That's something that Trump was able to really do masterfully well in the 2016 race for the Republican Party. The other thing I'm noticing, too, as well, is pragmatism versus optimism. Is the glass half full or is it half empty? We saw that debate going between the two sides, of moderates, progressives, and the pragmatic side. And I thought that was a really interesting race, and really what's happening with Delaney and with Ryan, I can't wait to see how it's going to underscore. Lastly, race. Marianne Williamson was not afraid to say the word black. Too often, and we talk about identity politics, we sweep blacks underneath the notion of people of color. Sometimes you have to segment that out in order to solve for the issues at hand. We saw her say the word black, and we saw Mayor Pete also say the word black unapologetically. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen tonight when it comes to that.
She was all over it, taking on the dark, what she called the dark psychic force of Donald Trump, the hatred, in her words. She came and visited us, Mike,
she did.
After she launched that attack on stage, and it went viral. Here's what she said she meant by that.
When I talk about dark psychic forces, what I'm talking about are racism, bigotry, anti-Semitism, homophobia, Islamophobia. We know they're there. It's not like any intelligent person thought that we didn't have such people and such forces in this country. But we had thought several years ago that we had reached a consensus on both left and right, that none of those forces would be given by Democrats or Republicans or any major political voices megaphones, serious political megaphones. And those levees have fallen. They've fallen in part because of social media, and they've fallen because we have a political leader who is not above stoking those forces, harnessing those forces for his own political purpose.
What do you think? It's great to see so many of the candidates stop by last night and talk to us here at ABC News Live. Mary Alice, you were in the room. I mean, it was a crush here last night. One of the smallest spin rooms I've ever seen.
A small spin room for a whole lot of candidates. It was sort of a mosh pit, but you guys did a great job. Got a lot of the candidates here.
You know who did a great job? Zoreen Shaw.
Yeah.
She is our intrepid political reporter. She was out there throwing some stiff elbows. She's out there now to talk to us about the spin room, what's in store for the night, for tonight. Hey, Zoreen.
Hi, Devin. Yeah, it's called the spin room, and I was definitely spinning last night. Now, right now, you're seeing the calm before the storm, though. There's barely anyone on here compared to how crazy it was last night. Even these reporter chairs, not too many people out here yet. And just take a look at how small this room actually is. If you look at these reporter booths right here, I mean, you can see people are right next to each other. There's barely any space in between them, right? The one interesting thing about last night is, and about really every night in the spin room, is you can tell just how excited people are about a candidate based on how hard it is to get to them. So last night, Bernie Sanders, he comes out right through those doors right over there. He's against that little wall right there. And the reporter line was about 5 or 6 people deep. I mean, there were so many people trying to talk to him. Another person that everyone really wanted to talk to was Beto O'Rourke, who was standing right over there at one moment. I tried to follow him out. You might be seeing video of that right now, actually. And it was so hard. I mean, at one point, I barely even felt like I was walking because I was just being pushed and kind of carried by this crowd. It is an incredibly tight scene out here. Devin, you know, I've worked in LA for the last 3 years, actually, so I've covered red carpet events before, but that doesn't even compare to this. I mean, this was just, the energy out here was incredible. You are stacked next to each other, shoulder to shoulder. It is quite an interesting experience.
Yeah, quite a different kind of red carpet than you're used to out there on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Zoreen Shaw, thanks so much. You get to do it again tonight, Zoreen, so we will be back with you for sure. Guys, a totally different crowd tonight, 10 different candidates, half the field, Mary Alice, as you've reported. Half of these guys, you said at the top, have not yet qualified for our debate in September, the ABC debate, so a lot on the line here. Let's take a look at who's on stage tonight. Center stage, of course, Joe Biden, as we have mentioned, but there's Andrew Yang, Tulsi Gabbard, people looking to nudge their way in. Bill Bill de Blasio has been a bomb thrower.
He has, and he's defended those progressive ideas that Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders were championing last night. We've seen Kirsten Gillibrand start to telegraph some possible attacks. She really wants to plant a flag as the candidate that is there to support women and reproductive rights more than the others. And everyone is gearing up for the sort of rematch you were talking about, Senator Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Is it going to be sort of round two? I just left a briefing with some senior staff for Joe Biden who said that they are ready and they are not going to let anyone mischaracterize his record. That's how they thought last time went down.
All right, we'll see tonight. Mike, what are your 3 things you're watching tonight that you want people at home to keep track of?
Well, to leave off exactly where we left off was Joe Biden. I hope he watched a lot of Muhammad Ali tapes because he's bobbing and weaving in between those two individuals. Joe Biden's in an interesting position because Cory Booker is going to talk to him a lot about criminal justice reform, and so how is Vice President Biden going to react and respond to that? Kamala Harris is going to talk to him about the segregation aspect of it. She's going to also talk about his position in criminal justice reform and what does that look like. But can he go on the offense of that? Can he talk about Cory Booker as mayor and the stop and the frisk notion? Will we see Bill de Blasio come in with that? Bill de Blasio did a great job of stopping and frisk in New York City, and then will he bring in the lack of accountability that Mayor Booker had while he was mayor of Newark when it comes to that? The other thing I've been watching out for is Andrew Yang. Detroit is ripe for Andrew Yang's conversation. We have Google right down the street from where we are looking at it right now. There's a lot of posters around it. Andrew Yang really understands future of work. He really understands artificial intelligence, and he really is trying to create programs very radical, very progressive in order to solve and make sure Americans are supported as our new economy goes to future work and it goes to the AI positioning. Also, too, Senator Gillibrand. We haven't had a chance to talk a lot about her recently, but Senator Gillibrand really cares about women's issues, and I'm curious to see how does she frame that discussion tonight. So a lot to watch out for.
Yeah, she'll be off on the wings, Mary Alice. You're tracking a bunch of things as well. What's your hot takes?
One more I would add. Julian Castro, who had quite a breakout moment in Miami.
In the first debate.
Right, he's the only Latino in the race. He really set the bar for the other Democrats by saying that he would decriminalize border crossings. We saw the Democrats start to backpedal from that last night. They know that is politically risky. So with him on the stage again tonight, it'll be interesting to see where the other Democrats line up. Do they also backpedal? Does that make him look like an outlier in a good way, in a bad way? I'll be watching that. And like you were saying, just can Biden bring it? There was a lot of talk after Miami that the presumed front runner looked low energy, looked a little tired, struggled with the clock. Remember that? Yes. All those awkward moments where he kept saying he was out of time. It became sort of a metaphor, like is his career out of time? So how he sort of revs up his campaign and tries to show people that he's ready for the long haul and can bring the fight.
He has announced, as he said, he's going to be a lot less polite than he was last time. So we'll find out tonight what that means. Guys, great to have you with us. Mary Alice Parks, terrific analysis as always, Deputy Political Director. You'll be back a little bit later. And tonight as well, Mike Muse, thanks for that. We're going to go to break right now. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes back here in Detroit for the second Democratic presidential primary debate. Stay with us.
ABC News, straightforward. What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. So if you like getting behind the biggest news stories of the day, inside all the details, the backstory, and what will happen next, then listen to Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. It's like no other news podcast out there. Even the critics agree. Listen free on Apple Podcasts.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live, the 24/7 streaming news source from ABC News. Breaking news, live events, streaming nonstop. Original breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, and it's all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want. Free. ABC News Live. Stream it now or anytime on Roku, Hulu, Facebook, and abcnews.com.
Doctor. Potatoes. Ismail? Yes. David.
Over ground zero from Hurricane Michael.
You can see just home after home.
David, thanks for meeting you.
This was your view.
My favorite view.
Thank you very much.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. No bull, no spin. Now imagine getting your news like that. Just give it to me straight. ABC News, straightforward.
Welcome back to Detroit, Michigan for the second night of a double-header debate here with the Democratic presidential primary. I'm here with Mike Muse of the Mike Muse Show, ABC News contributor. Mike?
Hey, what's happening, Devin?
It was a lot of fun with you last night. We got a lot more in store tonight. Race, criminal justice, urban policy expected to take center stage tonight.
Yes. Technology, future of work.
Technology, for no
AI.
other reason, though, than because Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, took on Joe Biden on busing and civil rights in the last debate. And we also had, as we were just talking about, the President of the United States launching this new attack on the city of Baltimore and its African-American congressman. He said just the other day that the city of Baltimore is a disgusting rat-infested mess. Today, the only African-American cabinet member with Donald Trump defended those comments, calling the city of Baltimore a cancer patient dressed in a nice suit. Here's Ben Carson.
I say forget about the demonization. There's plenty of credit to go around. There's plenty of blame to go around. Let's be smart enough to utilize our brains. I would like for the president to actually express his heart to the people the way he has expressed it to me. You know, I think sometimes, you know, he feels that he's going to be treated so hostilely that, you know, he says, well, maybe I don't even want to go there.
And that was Housing Secretary Ben Carson touring Baltimore today, defending President Trump and his attacks on that city, which Ben Carson knows very well. Joined now also by Perry Bacon Jr. from our friends at 538, who's been doing some analysis of this issue of race in the 2020 campaign. But I do want to start with you, Mike. What is this latest attack on Baltimore, on Elijah Cummings, the congressman there? What does it tell us about Donald Trump? And I guess, do you put this attack, this outburst, in the same category as the one Trump launched against those 4 congresswomen of color?
Yes, we're seeing a pattern from President Trump with his racist rhetoric and racist remarks, all the way when he came down the escalators dehumanizing Mexicans as rapists, all the way from Charlottesville when he talked about the white supremacists and their people are good on both sides, all the way when he told those 4 members of Congress to go back to your own country as if they are not already American citizens, and also if you're not having understanding of Representative Omar being a naturalized citizen and what that actually means for immigration and American policies altogether, and then to dovetail into this and calling Baltimore and using terms like rats and infestation.
Let me play devil's advocate with you just for a second, because a number of Republicans have surfaced today some testimony from Elijah Cummings of a few years back where he called his own city a drug-infested ward, that there were a lot of drugs there. Ben Carson's been critical of it in the past, a number of Republicans. So is it a double standard here for who can call the city a drug-infested ward?
Sorry, Devin, I cut you off. It's not a double standard whatsoever when you look at an established pattern, which is outlined. When you outline an established pattern of racist rhetoric targeted at members of Congress who are people of color, and when you target cities that are majority African-American cities, then you're able to detect a pattern from that perspective. I think we're also convoluting the two issues. What we need to address is the issue of race, and then separate the issues that are happening in Baltimore. No one is saying the city of Baltimore is perfect. That's not what we're arguing mitigating right now. We're mitigating the fact that racist remarks and racist rhetorics are coming from the Oval Office, from the President of the United States of America. That needs to be addressed first before we can get to the issues of Baltimore. And then with the issues of Baltimore, what the President has not said is, as President, what I would do to fix Baltimore. He has yet to really connect the dots that he is a president for all people, including the city of Baltimore. And so what are the issues that are aligned with the city of Baltimore that he can actually help with?
This outrage around Baltimore has drawn protests, not just from African Americans, residents of Baltimore, but today an extraordinary statement by the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., a place where presidents are buried, a icon of bipartisanship in Washington, and a place that normally doesn't speak out on politics and issues such as these. But take a look at this statement from the rectors of the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. They said, make no mistake about it, words matter. Mr. Trump's words are dangerous. They said that these Trump's words are nothing more than a dog whistle. And when such violent, dehumanizing words come from the president, they're a clarion call to white supremacists who consider people of color a subhuman infestation in America. Pretty strong statement. Let's bring in Perry Bacon into the conversation. Perry, you've taken a look at the history here. Tell us, is this a strategy that can work for Donald Trump, as detestable as it might be?
I think I want to separate a little bit out. What we tried to analyze was looking at the 2016 primary, the 2016 general election, and the 2018 races. And I think we used kind of a broad category. We talked about his stances on immigration policy, for example, build the wall, the Muslim ban, things like that. So we were more focused on probably, issues around race identity, a little less than his direct kind of comments like this. And what we found was, we think there's a pretty clear evidence that in the Republican 2016 primary, voters voted for Trump in part because of the wall policy, immigration in particular, the Muslim ban. And that was a differentiator in part because in a Republican primary, a lot of the other candidates have pretty similar views to Trump otherwise. And when we looked at the general election in 2016, it's a little harder, and there's data that looks at, there's some data that suggests that voters who voted for Obama in 2012 did move toward Trump in part because he was more conservative on issues like immigration. So there was some movement that way. But it's hard to say in the 2016 election with so much going on, particularly Hillary Clinton being so unpopular, being under FBI investigation. It's hard to say. I think it's pretty clear Trump won the Republican primary in part because of how he stood on issues like immigration and race. The 2016 general election is harder to say. And then in 2018, the way the Republicans lost, where they lost to a lot of suburban districts, where a lot of college-educated voters who are white, who did not like his immigration rhetoric particularly, voted against the Republican House members. It suggests 2018, the way Trump talks about issues of race and identity backfired on the Republican Party. So it's a complicated story where 2016 may have helped in the primary. The general election, we're not as sure. 2018, a potential backlash. So the answer to whether it helps or not politically is, I think, really complicated. I don't think I know the answer to the question. It's I don't know is what I would say is the real answer.
And that's a perfectly acceptable answer. 2020 going to be a complicated race. It's just getting started. Perry Bacon Jr., thanks so much from our friends at 538. A lot more of Perry Bacon's analysis at 538.com. Thanks, Perry. We'll see you soon. A lot to get into tonight. It's a conversation, I think, Mike, we will be having after the show as well. We will be back with much more. Mike Muse, Devin Dwyer here in Detroit, Michigan, ahead of the second night of the Detroit Democratic primary debates right after this. Stay with us.
ABC News, straightforward.
Yesterday she was at a pre-debate watch party, but really the word relaxed is, I think, what she wants to project. She just came for her CNN walkthrough wearing a Dodgers baseball cap.
Sending a message, perhaps? Then?
Maybe. I mean, the Dodgers are a winning team in California. I mean, maybe trying to signal something right there. But
maybe turning off some Detroit voters. Detroit Tigers across the street playing here. Let's bring Adam Kelsey into this. He's standing in front of, I think, the Detroit Stadium out there. Adam, Cory Booker going to team up with Kamala Harris tonight to take on Joe Biden?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see, Devin. There's certainly been that speculation that Cory Booker is somebody who needs a breakout moment. He's been at about 2-3% in that middle tier in the polls. And excuse me as I take my IFB out because I'm getting a little bit of interference. But somebody who's been at 2 to 3% in the polls since he entered this race. Like I said, somebody it's been speculated is going to go after Joe Biden because after the past week or so, they've been engaged in this back and forth over the issue of criminal justice reform. So as to the idea of whether tonight he's going to take aim at the former vice president, well, the issue here is that it's complicated because Cory Booker is someone, of course, who has this public persona of a Mr. Nice Guy, positive, optimistic, forward-looking. He talks a lot about the power of unity and love. So to kind of reconcile this back and forth here, I talked to his national press secretary, Sabrina Singh. Take a listen to what she told me.
Cory needs to be Cory. And so the most important thing out there is for not only him to be himself, but to make sure that when there are those moments that he needs to speak the truth on something, he's not going to hold back.
So he's not going to hold back when he's talking about criminal justice reform. That was basically the point that she was making to me. Another issue that she mentioned that Booker said he didn't see enough of yesterday was talk about women's health and reproductive rights. So he's going to have a lot of opportunities, long opening statement, long closing statement. If he wants to make that case, even as a man in this race, he's going to be able to do so. Devin?
We'll see. Adam Kelsey, thanks so much. Also, Julian Castro will be on stage tonight. He, of course, shook things up last debate with that surprise hand raise that he would decriminalize the border. A lot of talk about that tonight. But let's bring in Sasha Pesnik, who's also outside. She's striking Jay Inslee, Michael Bennett. Two very different candidates in this race, pitching very different messages. Climate change, of course, Jay Inslee's signature issue. He's sort of fighting to keep his campaign alive, Sasha.
Yeah, he is fighting to keep it alive, Devin, that's right. And he's been all over Detroit and all over Michigan in the past couple of days. On Monday, he started out, and excuse me as I also am getting some frequency interference here. I'm going to take my IFB out. I think it's because there's so much action going on around the stadium here and around the Fox Theater. They've even blocked off the entire street. But anyway, so Inslee has, he started off the week in the most polluted area of Michigan, actually, and he unrolled a new plan there focused on gentrification of pollution and the racial inequalities that go along with climate change. People who are suffering on the front lines the most of climate change are the ones who benefit from it the least. So he started out there. He went to Flint in the afternoon. He played basketball with the mayor and local leaders and listened to them about what was the most important thing to them. If we do have that shot, it would be great, talking about the grit and the gumption of the Flint community.
The story is about resurgence and community inspiration, and so it's a national story. And I would love to talk about it if I'm given enough time during the debate. That was a challenge last time.
Yeah, all about the grit and the gumption of that community, Devin. And I hope we'll see more of that on stage for him tonight, along with Michael Bennett.
All right, Sasha Pesnik, thanks so much for your reporting outside the historic Fox Theater here in downtown Detroit. We're a little bit heavy at this time, so we'll say thanks to Zoreen Shaw for joining us. Also, thanks to Adam Kelsey. Thank you for watching us here on the Briefing Room Special Edition. Much more ahead, including our road trip up to Macomb County. Much more ahead right after this. Stay with us.
News, straightforward. This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live, the 24/7 streaming news source from ABC News. Breaking news, live events, streaming nonstop. Original breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, and it's all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want. Free. ABC News Live. Stream it now or anytime on Roku, Hulu, Facebook, and abcnews.com.
What you're seeing right now, this is part of the eye wall.
This procession of migrants goes back 2 miles.
There is going to be catastrophic damage.
This fire has made a run. You can see those flames shooting up into the sky.
We are on the jam-packed red carpet.
All right, guys.
So this is the 4th weekend of protests.
ABC News on location for Facebook Watch every day.
Sheriff's Office! We march together.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
Okay, imagine the morning. I'm talking about a good morning. Imagine starting your day off with friends. What's better than that? You know, like the crazy smart friend who always keeps you in the know. The friend with a huge heart and smile who just makes everything better. Imagine hearing from people who open your eyes and your heart. Imagine knowing what's coming next in the day ahead. Well, I get to live this each morning together with you. Imagine that. How blessed am I? And that's what makes it such a good morning, America.
Hey everybody, you're watching a special edition of the Briefing Room here on ABC News Live, coming to you from Detroit, Michigan on the second night of the Democratic presidential primary debates. I'm Devin Dwyer. Great to have you with us. Well, this state, the state of Michigan, is going to be critical in the next presidential election. Donald Trump won it by just 10,000 votes in 2016. Today we traveled up to Macomb County, the key swing district here, where it's fiercely independent voters will likely decide the outcome next election. So this is Route 53, runs north and south through Macomb County, all the way through the heart of this critical swing district. To the north is largely a lean Republican area. To the south sort of leans Democrat. But everybody we've talked to along Route 53 here on our road trip has confirmed that this is an independent place. People really trying to make up their minds based on the candidate. You guys been paying attention to the politics at all? A lot of with the debate just 20 miles down the way here, people coming up to Macomb.
Well, I watched them last night.
Oh, did you? What'd you think?
Everybody has something different to say, you know. Everybody's got a different idea.
I was thinking that since Trump's been in office, a lot of the car people are happy that they still have jobs, but then there's a lot of plants that don't.
Oh, somebody wants to talk. How are you guys?
No.
Who's this little guy?
We've lived here for 50 years, so we're very happy with Sterling Heights. Everything that we've encountered has been good.
50 years.
50 years.
Long time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We like the schools. We love the pantry.
If you had to sort of say what your biggest worry is right now in life, what would it be?
Car insurance.
Car insurance? Well, I've been hearing about how expensive it is in this state.
Yeah.
I guess for me it's the influence of television in the political world, that even sometimes the smallest incident becomes national news, and we lose the sight of where the big problems are.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So tell us about Sterling Heights. Tell us about your city.
Well, it's a great city. It's a blue-collar town. We've got hardworking people that, sometimes they vote for Republicans, sometimes they vote for Democrats. They're independent-minded, and we have solid Midwestern values: personal accountability, responsibility, want to raise a good family, and have a piece of the American dream. We work for our money, is the way I say. We don't just watch our money accumulate in an account. We earn what we make. I mean, you've got a lot of Trump supporters here. Trump won handily here. I mean, really easily he won. It was surprising for a blue-collar town that really can go left or right. I mean, he won that town this town pretty handily. And yeah, certainly there are people that, I think the wall is really an analogy or an allegory for we want a president who puts America first, and that's what Trump's whole mantra is. So there's a small group, there's maybe 20 to 25%. They're always going to go Republican, and 20 or 25% they're always going to go Democrat. But that 50% middle, yeah, they're easily persuadable, I would say, because you can talk to them about what is it in your life that I can do to make things easier for you and your family.
What would you tell somebody who'd never been to Macomb County about what this place is all about?
It's wonderful. I mean, we're
kind of like the little bit of the country that's left, you know, in the city of Sterling Heights, but Macomb County, I mean, great orchards and great farms and great people.
Yeah.
Sterling Fest just went on, and that was wonderful.
Working class, really working class area.
Yeah, but a nice community.
What's the biggest worry you have right now as a small business owner? Is there are you feeling pretty good about the business, or what's on your mind?
No, I guess, I mean, sustainability, I guess. I mean, we deal with Northern Farms, and they worked very hard to get their product in this year, and it was not an easy task.
Do you think the country's on the right track right now?
I think we need some work, but I think, yeah, I mean, mixed emotions with that too. But yeah, I think it seems like business is booming, and people, I mean, there's a lot of debates with the healthcare and that, but no.
Business is good. Life is good.
Yeah. As long as people are healthy and happy and working, and yeah, they're, you know, that's a tough question.
Hey, ma'am. Hey, I'm Devin Dwyer with ABC News. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. We're in town for the debates down in Detroit.
Yes.
Have you caught any of that at all?
Bits and pieces,
Yeah.
but we've been so busy with our kids that I'm just like, okay.
Too much.
It's a lot, yeah. It is a lot.
How are you feeling about the state of politics right now, just generally?
I don't know. I for one, am not really super big into politics. It's a lot.
So you think about politics right now? You plugging in at all?
I'm
not paying attention.
The debate was last night. So I'm going to read up on that. I did not watch it because, truthfully, I didn't know anybody.
Folks we've talked to sort of blur the lines. They're kind of picky. They're not flag-waving Republicans or Democrats. Do you think that's fair?
I would think so.
Yeah.
We have a lot of ethnic that have moved in, so it's not just, one. There's a lot of us in here now, which is nice.
What do you think about just sort of the state of our politics right now, generally?
I do not like it. I mean, one's against the other. They're not, helping each other. This is what I feel.
How do you make the decision when you go to that ballot box in 2 years' time?
See what they've done over the years.
It seems like a pretty personal decision.
It is personal.
You want to meet the candidate, whether they're Republican or Democrat. You want them to be an honest, stand-up person who can speak to what it's like to live here in the West.
Sure. See what they're going to do or try to do. We don't want too many promises that aren't going to happen, which happens.
Is really the lifeblood of this part of Michigan. Everywhere you look, you see auto factories, auto dealerships. This one over here, a GM transmission platform, one of 5 to close this year, will cost 16,000 jobs over the next couple of years. But people here insist they're optimistic.
Back there, that's not a shot there.
And a lot of optimism up there in Macomb County, Mary Alice. I was struck by, even with that plant closing, people feeling very good about the economy right now. The bottom line over all of this, I have to say, is people are not that plugged in the middle of the country right now with the presidential election. Some of that's to be expected, I suppose. But in light of our extraordinary political times, I think for those who are sort of avid political junkies, news followers, we forget that in large parts of the country, certainly found it today, traveling all over Macomb County, people are tuned in, but there's a lot of time left before decisions need to be made about who to vote for.
I wonder if that would be the same if you were in some of the immigrant communities that are in Michigan. I'm struck by the fact that Macomb County is only an hour away from Dearborn, and Representative Rashida Tlaib's district, she's a member of that squad that President Trump has been going after. It's a really large Muslim population down there. And I think that the county that you chose to highlight really gets at that kind of urban-rural divide, a racial divide in America, even playing out in a Midwestern state.
It sure was. And Perry Bacon Jr. with 538 is still with us as well. Perry, we'll bring you into this because, a lot of these people in this particular county, which I know you're familiar with, they lean one way or the other. They're not flag-waving members of the party. They really evaluate their candidates. and they want a candidate that speaks to them. And I heard a lot today that Democrats, obviously with the field so large, don't have sort of a small group that they can kind of pick from. A couple people simply say, God, there's so many of them, I can't keep up right now. Do you think that's a problem for the Democrats, or do you think this is something that'll simply work its way out the closer we get?
Yeah, I think by next July, when there's a Democratic nominee, people will know who that is. Particularly if it's Joe Biden. My guess is if you ask people in Macomb County, they do know who Joe Biden is, right?
They do.
So.
This problem is going to solve itself, perhaps, for sure. But how about this issue of race? And this issue.
They know the black lady, so to speak, but I think they'll have filled out her name as Kamala as we go forward. But look, the Michigan is so interesting because you had a lot of voters flip from Obama to Trump, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm not sure if you interviewed them there, but those are the people that I'm trying to zone in on. It's kind of hard to find them in most places. They're not a big part of the electorate, but they're a obviously very important part of the electorate. And I think that you saw in the midterms, some of those people, if you interviewed them, were not happy with how Trump governed, and they sort of voted for a House candidate who's a Democrat. But that's different than voting for a Democratic presidential candidate against Trump.
Yeah, it sure is. Perry Bacon with 538. Thanks so much. And Mary Alice, as the Democrats sort of zero in on Detroit this week, they're certainly keeping their sights on Wisconsin next door as well. We should just remind everybody, and that's where the Democrats are going to have their convention this year, an equally, if not more important state for folks who are following this.
And a lot of the same issues that maybe led to some of those switches, some of those Obama-Trump voters, issues of trade, manufacturing, and of course healthcare. I was struck by just how many of those people that you talk to in diners and around the county said that things like drugs, the cost of prescription drugs, and healthcare was still top of mind.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue, actually, because it is the issue that polls show, as you know, voters say is the top. Healthcare is the top issue of concern to most people. It's certainly something that dominated on the debate stage last night. Is it Medicare for all who want it, or something else? Here's a flavor of that debate.
5 minutes away from here, John, is a country. It's called Canada. They guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child as a human right. They spend half of what we spend. And by the way, when you end up in a hospital in Canada, you come out with no bill at all. Health care is a human right, not a privilege. I believe that. I will fight for that.
We can create a universal health care system to give everyone basic health care for free, and I have a proposal to do it. But we don't have to go around and be the party of subtraction and telling half the country who has private health insurance that their health insurance is illegal.
Let's be clear about this. We are the Democrats. We are not about trying to take away health care from anyone. That's what the Republicans are trying to do.
This is an example of wish list economics. It used to be just Republicans wanted to repeal and replace. Now many Democrats do as well.
For some context around this healthcare debate, I want to bring in a healthcare reporter who's been a guest here on ABC News Live before. Michelle Faust is a healthcare reporter with Southern California Public Radio. It's great to have you, Michelle. Mike Muse is back as well for this conversation. Michelle, this was a huge debate that Democrats are having right now. Do they do Medicare for all? Do they do something more like a public option? You talk to a lot of people on all sides of the industry, the public. Where are people falling right now on the idea of Medicare for all versus sort of Obamacare plus? What do the latest numbers show us out there?
Well, we just got a Kaiser Family Foundation poll this week that showed that Democrats, yes, they want health care to be reformed in one way or another, but 55% want to build on what exists under the Affordable Care Act, and about 39% are saying that they want some sort of Medicare for all. In California, we've been having this debate for some time, and there's been criticism of people who say that building on the Affordable Care Act is incremental, and they really want to have a revolution in healthcare.
And it's something that's giving so much anxiety, Mike, to Democratic voters, because you have this push, as Michelle just said, universally, Democrats and Democratic leaners want more people to have health care. They want it to be cheaper. They're willing to take some bold steps for it, but they're very afraid to lose what they have and that they are happy with, and that is private health insurance. How much of that do you think is scare tactics from the right, from the president, even from people like from Joe Biden, rather? I mean, do Do you think there's a legitimate fear there?
I don't think it's scary tax at all. I think it's a real issue that individuals are having. A lot of individuals really have insurance that they enjoy and in the private market that they want to keep. I think Tim Ryan raised that perfectly yesterday, and particularly when it comes to our labor force. He really talked about the cost of healthcare and the benefits of how much hourly workers can make, in particular manufacturing. A manufacturer costs in terms of their salary, and the benefits can equal up to $68 per hour. That's incredible privatized healthcare. For individuals to give that up for the unknown variable, it makes people uneasy.
And Michelle, you study the industry a lot. Can you kind of give us a bottom line on some of the things that John Delaney was talking about last night? Not going to put you on the spot to go into the details, but Delaney was saying things, the moderate former congressman from Maryland was saying, look, if we go Medicare for all, it's going to close hospitals, people's premiums are going to skyrocket, taxes rather are going to skyrocket. This is going to be horrible, earth-ending, earth-shattering. Is that true, or we just don't know enough yet?
Well, PolitiFact said that is not true. Not all the hospitals in the country are going to close if we go for Medicare for all, but there might be some that do. Some hospitals also that have a lot of Medicaid and Medicare patients, Medicaid pays at a lower rate than Medicare does. So a lot of those hospitals might even be making a little bit more money to cover the costs of the care of people. So that just really depends on the hospital and the people that they serve. The other thing that we know is that Medicare for all is, it could be expensive. They're saying that it could be $3.2 trillion a year, but Americans are already spending $3.5 trillion a year on healthcare.
Excellent analysis and context from Michelle Faust, a Southern California Public Radio healthcare reporter. Great to see you, Michelle. Thanks so much for joining us. Speaking about that anxiety, Mike, you mentioned Ashley Schwartz-Lavar is here. She's been our reporter in Detroit. You caught up with some folks today locally who are very concerned about this debate.
Most definitely, Devin. I spoke with a mother. Her name is Sarah Fraser. She has a 6-year-old son. She's living with multiple sclerosis, and this requires a great deal of medication, a high cost of medication. And she shared with us what some of her anxieties are with the kind of wavering work requirements that Michigan may require Michigan residents to prove in order to qualify for Medicaid.
Here's that tape.
I was officially diagnosed in 2012. At that time, I was still working a 40-hour-a-week job. I had insurance through my employer, but with co-pays and co-insurance and deductibles and things, I had racked up so much debt just trying to figure out what was wrong with me. But now that I'm on Medicaid, I don't have to worry about paying for my doctor's visits. I don't pay for my medication. And now, because of the ACA, insurance companies actually have to cover my medication. If I didn't have insurance, my medication costs me $81 per pill twice a day. So that would be $59,000 a year, which is more than some people make in a year. You don't stop being a human being just because you are unemployed. And making it harder for you to get health care makes it harder for you to get employment or stay employed. Healthcare should never be tied to having a job, because things happen and sometimes you lose your job, but you don't stop being a human. I just want to be a normal everyday person and live my life and not be financially destroyed because of an illness I didn't choose.
Our thanks to Ashley Schwartz-Lavar for putting a human face on this healthcare debate. Much more ahead here on ABC News Live, including a look at how Detroit is using tiny homes to fight homelessness. Stay with us.
ABC News, straightforward. In times like these, the news-making events happen here. ABC News.
President Trump meeting face-to-face with one of the world's most brutal dictators, Kim Jong-un.
The president.
You trust him? I do trust him, yeah. I think he trusts me, and I trust him.
Ivanka Trump.
I have to ask you about your emails. Your father had taken Hillary Clinton to task for this.
There just is no equivalency.
So the idea of lock her up doesn't apply to you?
No.
Comey.
How strange is it for you to sit here and compare the president to a mob boss? Very strange.
Michelle Obama.
What do you wish you could tell your pre-White House self?
Whew.
Melania Trump.
Do you think there's still people there that he can't trust?
Yes.
Still working now?
Yes.
Michael Cohen.
So he's still lying.
Yes.
It's a big statement.
And now, in a year with so much on the line, we're right there.
Good evening tonight from Washington, a very busy news night.
America's #1 news source, ABC News, straightforward.
Sheriff's Office! We march together.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
Okay, imagine the morning. I'm talking about a good morning. Imagine starting your day off with friends. What's better than that? You know, like the crazy smart friend who always keeps you in the know. The friend with a huge heart and smile who just makes everything better. Imagine hearing from people who open your eyes and your heart. Imagine knowing what's coming next in the day ahead. Well, I get to live this each morning together with you. Imagine that. How blessed am I? And that's what makes it such a good morning, America.
And welcome back to Detroit, everybody, here on ABC News Live. I'm with Mike Muse of The Mike Muse Show, ABC News contributor. I'm Devin Dwyer. We're getting ready for the second night of this round 2 Democratic presidential primary debate doubleheader. We're taking a closer look right now at the city of Detroit, which, as you have been saying, Mike, is undergoing an unbelievable transformation.
Absolutely.
Right now.
Lots of industries are moving here, in particular in tech. Devin, I can't believe when I was writing around how close Google is. Google has a beautiful space here now. LinkedIn is here. Quicken Loans is here. Quicken Loans is really working on big data, AI initiatives.
Jobs are coming back along with it, retraining folks as
Restaurants.
well. Some areas outside of town, as we have seen these past couple of days, are still suffering from a lot of blight and from homelessness. But there is one organization here in Detroit which is trying to do something about that by taking a big step with something very tiny. Take a look.
You know, when you're homeless, people don't go to bed and wake up and say, I'm going to be homeless. It just, something happens. You lose your job or whatever. But I was out there doing all the wrong things. I guess we start over here. I worked through Cass Community Social Service. I got a job through there. They helped me get a home. See, I'm on the right track now.
We're in the middle of Detroit on part of the Cass Community Social Services campus in the new tiny homes development. We were looking for a way to help poor people, especially formerly homeless people, gain an asset. And for most of us in this country, our house is our bank, right? It's where we store our money. And so it became a natural way for them to gain home ownership. We have 13 completed, 6 will be done on Labor Day weekend, and then we'll start 6 more. Well, it's really for people who have an income already, between $7,000 and $15,000 a year, but don't make enough money to obtain a mortgage. And so it gives them a safety net while they're alive and helps with generational poverty when they die.
Did you want to come in? Oh, go ahead, go ahead. You all know how happy I was, because this is my first home. I'm 62, I had a birthday last week. Never owned a house, you know, and I love it. This is my little kitchen there. A lot of people come in, like my family say, this house too small. Not for me. It's the right size for me. I could bring my kids and grandkids and spend the weekend with them. We could do things together now. I'm so happy. I could call something mine.
Really, really neat to see that. A homeowner at 62, a tiny homes community here in Detroit. Our thanks to Janet Weinstein for bringing us that really special story. For a little bit more on this, I want to bring in now the General Counsel for the National Fair Housing Alliance, Morgan Williams, an organization which has been promoting the use of tiny homes to a certain extent, also lowering the cost of living. Morgan, great to see a lot of voters out there right now really concerned about skyrocketing cost of home ownership, of rent, of the like. Are tiny homes part of the solution?
Tiny homes are one approach to dealing with what is a broad problem that we have in our country that derives from really a growing inequality. And that is not just an inequality broadly, but it is a racial wealth gap that has been growing as a nation. The main way that people build wealth in the U.S. is through home ownership. And this growing wealth gap is directly linked to inequity in home ownership. And so any means that we can approach the housing market to increase access to home ownership and to rental housing that is affordable to people across a broad spectrum will help to address this bigger problem, this bigger racial wealth gap that we see.
And we've seen it replicated in a lot of cities. Washington, D.C. is doing a lot of tiny homes. Are they doing it in New York, Mike?
Not that I'm aware of, but I know the tiny homes are extremely popular. I know my nephew wants one. But imagine the pride I was looking at. This isn't that gentleman saying he owns a home for the first time.
To see that expression on his face.
And what that means for individuals, and the amount of pride that they carry forward with it. I'm really glad that we had the chance to really highlight this issue because, Devin, as we were saying, downtown Detroit is growing by leaps and bounds. But unfortunately, that economic has not really reached the outer boroughs of downtown. East side of Detroit is still struggling. The west side of Detroit is still struggling. They haven't been able to participate in this new economy as much as individuals who've actually moved from out of town and have moved from the suburbs to come back into the city. Those in the outer parts of Detroit haven't had the chance to participate in this new economy of it yet. So tiny homes is a really great solution.
One solution, that's actually a solution the Trump administration has been promoting. Ben Carson has been out front saying that tiny homes, prefabricated homes are really a big part of their answer to this housing crisis, housing price crisis. But I want to bring Morgan back into this. Morgan, what else, you were alluding to it earlier, but what else is needed from policymakers? What else do these Democratic candidates tonight need to talk about and push for when it comes to improving housing access and lowering the price?
Absolutely. When you're talking about the growing racial wealth gap and inequity in housing, it's important to recognize that in the housing markets today, there are policies out there that create real barriers to people in accessing housing. And one of the main tools that we have to challenge those barriers under the Federal Fair Housing Act is what's referred to as disparate impact. And disparate impact is a long-standing civil rights tool that is used to address discriminatory policies that appear neutral on their face, but in effect discriminate against people. And unfortunately, you noted that Carson is a proponent of tiny homes. The U.S. Department of Housing Development is proposing a rule that would destroy this key civil rights tool and is really an aggressive move to undercut the protections that we have today. When you're talking about access to housing, tiny homes are one part of a puzzle, but there's a broader housing market that has real barriers embedded in it. And unfortunately, this HUD is poised to take moves to undercut the tools that we have to dismantle that inequity. There's a lot that divides us in the country, but if there's one value that we can all agree on, it's that everyone should have a fair shot. And most fundamentally, that comes to in regards to creating open housing markets. And this HUD is taking steps to dismantle the tools that we have to do just that.
Morgan Williams, General Counsel for the National Fair Housing Alliance. Thank you for that, sir. Appreciate it. Good to see you. And we are right back where we started, Mike, because we're on the topic of race, racism, discrimination. Yeah. Something this administration has been accused of, and a hot topic that's going to come up again tonight.
It is. It's not going anywhere. And I'm glad that America is finally having that uncomfortable discussions. As Americans, we have to become more comfortable in getting into uncomfortability. Race isn't easy to talk about. And no one has a magical solution, but we must start the conversation. And far too often, when we begin to talk about race as a country, we always say, well, we're more advanced now. Individuals are more educated, have more opportunities for economic gains, but that just isn't the case.
And we're joined by Aaron Katersky, ABC News radio anchor, political correspondent, and also my good friend. He will be with us tonight for our special coverage here on ABC News Live just a few hours from now. That second Democratic primary presidential debate. Aaron, what are you going to be looking for tonight?
Man, Marianne Williamson had the answer on race that really made it last night in an all-white cast. I'm very curious with Cory Booker and Kamala Harris on stage whether tonight's debate gets a little bit more personal.
And we will see you tonight, 7 p.m. here Eastern Time on ABC News Live. Join us. We'll have continuing coverage after the debate. For Aaron, Mike Muse, I'm Devin Dwyer in Detroit. We hope to see you a little bit later on here on ABC News Live. For now, thanks for watching.